President Donald Trump is putting pressure on governors now to send kids back to school as COVID-19 outbreaks spike. More than 3 million Americans have tested positive, and that's nearly a quarter of all cases globally. 60,000 new cases were reported in the U.S. yesterday. That's the highest single-day spike yet. Outbreaks in 3 states are now worse than any other country in the world. When you look at the number of cases per million people over the past 7 days, Arizona takes top spot, followed by Florida and South Carolina. As Jackson Proskow explains, President Trump is determined to get back to business.
More than 50 ICUs in Florida have reached capacity. In parts of Texas, 1 in every 4 COVID-19 tests comes back positive.
In the next 2 weeks, we are probably going to end up being what New York was 2 months ago.
Despite those dire warnings, the rapid spread of the virus across America is still being downplayed by President Donald Trump.
Well, I think we are in a good place.
As they did with businesses, the White House is now pushing schools to reopen on an aggressive timeline, with Trump making the mostly empty threat to withhold federal funding if they don't.
They must fully open, and they must be fully operational.
The Trump administration has gone so far as to attack the advice from its own Centers for Disease Control, claiming school reopening guidelines are too tough.
We don't want the guidance from CDC to be a reason why schools don't open.
New York has said it will reopen under a hybrid model, welcoming students back on alternating days to reduce crowding. Other hotspots may be hard-pressed to bring anyone back, for fear students will spread the virus to teachers and bring it home to their parents.
We have to think about schools in the same way that we've thought about every other workplace and every other environment for play and for social environment, and then say to ourselves, fundamentally, it's really unlikely.
All of this assumes that parents want to send their children back. Just as it called for all schools to reopen, the White House task force told Americans living in current hotspots to stay home.
It's really asking the American people in those counties and in those states to not only use the face coverings, not going to bars, not going to indoor dining, but really not gathering in homes either.
The result, more confusion about what's safe and what's not, at a time when there's no doubt about the terrifying trajectory of the pandemic in the U.S. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
President Donald Trump signed the new NAFTA deal at the White House today, and only the president of Mexico was with him. The agreement took more than 2 years to negotiate. Even though it's been ratified by all 3 nations, there are a number of outstanding issues. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau opted not to cross the border for this photo op. He hailed the signing, though, as a success for all 3 nations. He says he's concerned about the lingering threat of U.S. tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel.
The United States relies heavily on imports of Canadian aluminum in particular for their domestic manufacturing capacity. The U.S. doesn't make nearly enough aluminum to be able to cover its needs, particularly at a time where we want the economies to get going again.
The Prime Minister says there is no justification for levying new tariffs.